coming up this week on Once a Duck. And you know what? When you're an Oregon back and you get a one-on-one opportunity with safety at the 1 yard line in Autzen Stadium, I feel bad for that safety. All that and more coming up on Once a Duck.
Where's your favorite place to take college game day? And I say every time, Eugene, Oregon.
That's right, everybody. We are back with another episode of the Once a Duck podcast. I am Sam Schmidt. I'm coming to you live at the moment from beautiful California, but that might change here along this episode as we go. Next to me, of course, as always, we've got the great Nick Cody. Nick, how you doing, buddy?
Thank you. I appreciate that, Sam. I don't know if I'm feeling all that great, but I know the Ducks team looks great, so I'll go with that. I like it. Anyways,
you're looking great yourself, buddy. Come on now.
I appreciate that, man. It's mainly just the O-chain bringing up, the overall wardrobe, kind of spicing it up a little bit, but I appreciate that. And I appreciate all the folks that follow us out there on all the social platforms. You can find us always at Once a Duck or individual tags. My man over here at Samuel101TS and me, myself, at Nick R. Cody. And if you guys didn't already know, we have this little podcast here called Once a Duck, and we appreciate your support. Please like, subscribe, and share with your fellow Ducks fans. We are here this week to talk about a very important upcoming game we've had scheduled for a while. Biggest road trip we've had planned this season up to the big house in Michigan. But first, Sam, we got to break down the homecoming game we just had against Illinois, and we were both pretty close in our predictions.
We were both just about right there. I got to give us credit. I mean, I'm pretty sure I hit that 38 number right there on the nose. I was pretty impressed with myself about that. We were both just about as close as you could hope to be with one of these without getting it exactly right. But the Oregon football team, they looked fantastic. They played maybe their most complete 30 minutes of football we saw the entire season with how they came out in that first half, just punching Illinois in the mouth immediately. Dillon Gabriel, he was fantastic as always, 18 of 26 for 291 yards, 3 touchdowns, further pushing himself into a conversation that I think it's just about time to start having, and that's the Dillon Gabriel to New York conversation. They were saying it on the broadcast. They've been saying it all week in the media. A fantastic week for Dillon, a fantastic week for this Oregon defense, only allowing 9 points, keeping Illinois nearly scoreless the majority of that ball game. Nick, how did this one play out for you? Were you able to check it out? What did you see that you love from Oregon?
Oh, man. Well, you got to love always, getting that kickoff early and out of the way, nice. And honestly, man, the funniest thing is up here in Seattle, it was awful. Like, you wouldn't be able to believe that a 5 to 6 hour drive, you could see such beautiful weather down in Eugene, where people were saying it was even getting hot during that game. And up here, it was just miserable, sad, depressing, just like a lot of the Seattle folk themselves. So, I was very happy to be indoors watching it at my own couch. And man, it was, again, once we came out there, and especially on that first touchdown to Tez Johnson, the way that our pocket protection looked, Dillon Gabriel, as I said on Twitter that day, had enough time to fix himself a sandwich back there, probably finish at least half of it before he delivered the ball to Tez Johnson, who took it the rest of the way with some fantastic moves across the middle of the field and then getting it right there to the pylon. Fantastic play, a lot of fun. You knew right from that point on it was not going to be a fun day for the Illinois Brett Bielema squad, and it was not. In fact, it felt like, we gifted them a lot of what was in that second quarter, or second half there, and otherwise, this was another really, really great day for our defense. Offensive efficiency, of course, in the first half, but we got to talk about just what the hell are we seeing? This is not an Oregon defense that we've seen before, Sam. What do you see?
Well, I got to tell you, Nick, I'm seeing a lot of really, really good things out there. I think the thing that impressed me most, only giving up 293 total yards right there. 161 through the air, 132 on the ground. That's a defense that really, and even that, take out the 99-yard or just about 99-yard drive that Illinois had there in the second half. You know, it looked like it was going to be dead to rights. It looked like Oregon had another 3-and-out. Unfortunately, we had the penalty there that kind of extended that drive, gave Illinois a little bit of momentum. But take that out of the equation like you almost did. That's another 90 yards off the table right there. This Oregon defense was really, really fantastic throughout this game. You had to have loved the pressure that they were bringing, whether it was guys like Tatum, whether it was guys like Harmon, whether it was Mateo, you know, out there doing his thing again, or even the linebackers getting in on the action. Devin Jackson with a huge sack showing off that track speed there. This defense was all over the place. And of course, the secondary, they did their job as well. Tysheem Johnson a pick, Nico Reed a really strong game he had, and then even some of the young guys getting in on it. We're going to talk about them here in just a minute. But overall, very impressed from what I'm seeing from this Oregon unit.
Yeah, and overall, one of the things I've mentioned is this season is our defensive versatility, and that was no more prevalent than what we saw the especially coaching wise. We had diagnosed everything that Illinois did in the red zone. The reason they weren't able to get in there and score a touchdown specifically, and were shut down in multiple times, is we were out there completely expecting them to pass in some of those short yardage situations on the goal line where a lot of teams are going to try and stuff it in. They knew they were not even going to try it, and it reflected in our personnel out there. As soon as we saw 3 or 4 wide receivers, man, we had Winston out there playing the nose and getting a pass rush against basically the entire interior of the offensive line. It was so great. I loved watching it as a football former player, as a fan overall, whether your understanding of the game was just, hey, I'm a fan of the Ducks and I just want to support them, or if you're a really football tactician. It was a very, very fun day to see just the personnel we use. And a lot of that reflected also on offense with Terrence Ferguson out. We got to see Kenyon Sadiq used in a lot of unique ways. And even in the blocking game, out there just completely being a threat to make this offense that much more viable.
Well, and that's going to be one of the first plays we look at when we do a little bit of tape time here coming up in just a couple of moments. We're going to see a couple of real bangers from Kenyon Sadiq. I think, honestly, though, you nailed it when you talk about what Oregon was able to do in the red zone, and it was so impressive. I think the drive that impressed me the most, Illinois coming out of the half, they drove the ball down the field, got 73 of the 75 yards they needed. Then all of a sudden they get down, first and goal at the 8, pass incomplete, second and goal at the 8, 4-yard run, third and goal, it's 2 yards right there, and then fourth down, nothing doing. That's the Oregon defense standing up right there, really kind of showing off their backbone, showing off their abilities. And then on the next drive, again, if you don't have that late unnecessary roughness penalty, you're going to get another 3-and-out right there. It was a really strong game defensively for this Oregon team, and I think that takes us perfectly into our guys of the game segment. We can start on defense, Nick. Who are some of your guys from the game, some of the guys that really impressed you in this Oregon versus Illinois matchup?
Yeah, always, again, penalty aside, it would have always been Harmon. So we got to give it to somebody. And we've talked about Mateo enough, but Tatum Tuioti is a guy that's really stood out as somebody that's not just in the passing game as a viable pass rusher and creating, problems in the backfield, but just his recognition of plays has gotten so much better, as we could say for many players on this Oregon defense, and have said a lot. But man, again, huge sign of coaching, great coaching there, and no better proof of that than the way that we've seen Tuioti progress.
I think that's a phenomenal answer right there. That's a guy who has really impressed me throughout the season, especially with this Jordan Birch injury. Him and Mateo had been doing so much work around the edges. Now with Birch out, you've seen the emergence of a guy like Winston, and you've seen a guy like Tuioti take that step forward, really kind of take command positionally, be able to show off what he can do, kind of from that edge rusher outside linebacker spot. A guy I want to mention right here, I'm mentioning 2 and 1. They're both in the secondary, a safety and a quarter. Tysheem Johnson and Nico Reed. Yeah. Tysheem Johnson, he led the team in tackles with 10 of them, 6 solo. He had half a tackle for loss getting in on there on one. He also had the interception deep downfield, doing exactly what a center of the field safety should be doing right there. Locating the ball, getting under it, making a great play on it. Did Aller just absolutely toss it up to the heavens? Yes, he totally did. He totally just kind of let that one go. That was as good as a punt. But Taishim still made the play on it, was able to get underneath it, pull in that ball. Really, really some great stuff we were able to see there from him. And then Nico Reed. This was a guy who had gotten some heat, especially after that UCLA game. He had been targeted quite a bit. He'd given up a few grabs. He was fantastic in this game. He had 2 tackles. They were all by himself, both of them. He had a tackle for loss, which was so impressive, being able to shed the blocker and get back there to make a big play. And he had more than a handful of times where he sincerely impacted the play. The one I think of is the pass down the sideline. It looked as if the Illinois receiver was going to be able to pull that one in, and instead, because he's able to get a fingertip on it and tip it away, he's not quite able to make that play. Pulls it down, not able to pull it down, excuse me. Another chance for Oregon to get off the field. Really, really loved what I saw from those 2 defensive backs in this ball game.
Of course. And something I know you must have also really loved, because we talked about it on the podcast last week. I believe, Sam, somebody had asked the question, what about Noah Whittington? Can he ever be the same back he was before? And, I wish I committed more to that answer. I wish I said, watch out, Sam. Noah Whittington is going to have a breakout game, because he did. And oh my goodness, everybody's already seen the highlights of the touchdown plays. But just, again, hearing the get out of my way call from Jerry Allen, oh my goodness, loved it. Made the highlights of the Big Ten, and again, the fantastic just play design on the touchdown grab too. Love that. Just what an opportune moment for a player that we just talked about the podcast before about recovering back from a huge devastating injury, and big bounce back game, and one of the best highlight plays I've seen in Autzen in quite a while, involving the truck stick.
Well, and I'll tell you what, Nick, I definitely asked the question last week, what's going on? What do you see here? What needs to happen? But you can go back and check my social media. I've been a Noah Whittington truther for a while now. I've been saying, get this guy the rock, get him comfortable, get him going again. Here's the thing. When he first came back to start this season, he had been less than a year out from that injury. We've just kind of crossed that almost about 13-month time stamp passage here recently. He's really starting to get that burst back. Not only is he getting that burst back where we saw in that Boise State game, he ran back that kick. He also had a chance to be able to build up to that speed going. That immediate quickness is there. We saw it on the touchdown run. We saw it on several other plays. Whittington, 7 carries for 56 yards. Of course, the booming touchdown. He's somebody who I have been so hoping Oregon is able to feed, able to get going, because really, in 2022, when we saw him fully healthy, besides Bucky Irving, there was a lot of conversation of man, either one of these guys can really go out there and get it done. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Noah Whittington, he had one of, if not the fastest runs in college football that year, scoring against Arizona. I think they clocked him going above 22 miles an hour on that. Just absolutely blazing speed while wearing a helmet and pads. Some incredible stuff right there. Being able to see him get comfortable, get adjusted in this game. And yeah, as I mentioned last week, is he the guy who's necessarily going to shift his way past 3 different tacklers and then get going? Maybe not, but if you give him a hole, he's going to take advantage of it. That's exactly what we saw on that big run play. That's exactly what we knew he was capable of. And man alive, I was so happy to see number 6 be able to get back in on the action. Another guy, Nick, that I wanted to be able to shout out here while we're talking about offensive players. Obviously, you knew that Tez Johnson was going to do his thing. 6 catches, 102 yards, and a touchdown. But
I already know where you're going with this. Good old Justice Lowe getting in there with the first touchdown of his career. And not only that, man, his blocking, I was a fan of.
Justice Lowe has proven himself in this early going of the season to really be the next one of those receivers, if you will. I think that there were a lot of people coming into this season that were very high on Jeremiah McClellan. I still am as well. I keep getting him the ball. He had a reception for 6 yards in this game. Love to be able to see him get in on the action. But Justice Lowe, whether it's on those little screen plays that they like to hit with Tez Johnson, whether it's him going deep, splitting two defenders over the middle, he's a guy who shows a ton of promise, a ton of ability. I love what he's able to do. And man, what an impressive catch that was on the touchdown. You know, usually that guy's expecting to have to reach out in front of himself or it lands right in the pocket right there. He had to reach back, kind of slow his momentum, almost a little Matrix style right there, change the momentum as he went, was able to pull in the ball, keep a hold of it, despite the pressure that he got, despite being hit as he went to the ground. Awesome, awesome stuff from Justice Lowe. He's one of the young players on this team that I absolutely love watching get out there and play.
Yeah, and one more offensive highlight, and really a guy that I was glad they highlighted at least a couple times during the broadcast is Nashad Struthers, because man, I really got to see what makes this guy really so effective in the run game, especially. He is such a great asset in terms of helping clean things up. So if your tackle there, Connerly Jr. has a little bit of like an inside five technique playing him, as soon as he comes by, he's landing a shoulder and giving a good pop and digging it in there before he climbs up to his assignment at the linebacker position. Was able to see him multiple times in the game and kind of really focus in on, yeah, his ability to sit there in the guard spot and just kind of be a wrecking ball and clean up anything that comes. I mean, that's been a huge asset to our offense and the flexibility that we now have in our running game with a number of backs that can go out and get it done as we've shown.
Well, and speaking of backs that can get it done, I know that next we wanted to each be able to highlight one of the younger players, maybe getting some of their first run in this one. Maybe not the first time they've touched the field all season, but for sure the first time that they've made an impact on the stat sheet, you could say. You start with the running back. I'll take the defender after this, but man, I know you were excited by what you were able to see out of Dijon Griggs.
Yeah, dude, and not only that, it was very, very funny to like. It takes you back to, you know, the games in the Portland States, where at the end of the game you knew a team was really dialed in and focused when all the veterans that were sitting there on the bench were out there rooting for the backups to go out there and execute at the same exact level, if not better. Because, you know, when you have a team kind of beat down, you've got your backups, and that's an opportune moment for you to go out there and put some on film that makes the coaches think, all right, we got to get him in some meaningful game reps. And we definitely saw that from the, at least I feel very comfortable with the depth of this running back position. Every time it felt like some of those runs were popping, it wasn't with our number one offensive line group. It was with the backups out there getting, you know, some. Whenever you get to see a little Jeremiah mullet out there on the field, I'm loving that in the run game. That's just showing you asserting dominance with the mullet out there at the tackle position is something I can stand behind. But yeah, you get again. I love that the team is all in a game where, you know, you could easily check out, already be looking ahead to Michigan, playing at the Big House next week. You know, the announcement crew was already talking about it, but they were just excited to be out there in Autzen Stadium, celebrating with all the rest of the fans that homecoming weekend and being able to see one of their teammates do something great. And whenever, man, what a memory that's going to be for that young man, you know?
Absolutely. Dijon Riggs in this ball game, the freshman, and I love a running back with some size, 6 foot,
Yeah.
210 pounder. You gotta love seeing that. Honestly, loved everything we were able to see from him. Love a running back wearing 21, tearing it up for Oregon too. I don't know what it is about that. I'm a really big fan. One other player that I got to give a lot of credit to, Sione Leale. Unreal interception he was able to have late in this ball game, turning the head around, making the play on the opposite side. Really, really nice pick from him. Some really good stuff we are able to see from this Oregon defense and from the depth of this Oregon team in general. Nick, before we move on, before we get to our interview and to our Michigan preview, there's a couple of plays from this one that we got to take a look at. I would love to get your opinion quickly here. talking about a little bit of what we saw from the Oregon-Illinois ball game, starting with that first play I sent you. It's one that we talked about last week. It's going to be Sadiq on a handoff.
All right. So, breaking down this first play here, we've got a fly sweep to Kenyon Sadiq. And what I really love about this is the commitment to the front side of the offensive line. Everybody from the tight end on down to the right guard is blocking like we have zone left. And you've got the back committed to that. Right now, ultimately, you have a little bit of a handoff, kind of like a toss fake to the left side. But what we all need to know from Johnny's position right here, getting out on the edge and basically becoming a right tackle puller with no one blocking down, just going and hoping that the Illinois backfield is just going to follow the motion of that offensive front, all moving in a way. And it doesn't necessarily work. You can even see the linebackers and safeties don't necessarily go with the flow at first, but we do such a good job of Johnny taking care of the edge here. And Kenyon Sadiq just has such athleticism for a tight end, H-back, whatever you want to call it out of that position. Man, love that kind of play. And we've been seeing a lot of jet sweep, but it's not been quite as effective as this one was right here.
Well, and I loved the number one they just ran this after we had spoken about it last week. And boy, oh boy, a weapon like Sadiq, how do you not use him every opportunity you get? Love Oregon and their innovation, especially being able to use a guy who's that talented in that position, in that spot right there. Moving things along, though, I'm pretty sure our very next play we're going to take a look at right here. This is going to be another one that is impressive to me just because not only do we have Sadiq again getting the ball here, but you get those offensive linemen moving up, getting to the second level. What are you seeing from that group right here?
Yeah, this one right here, you're getting a screen. And whenever you're getting a screen, you're getting offensive linemen out in space. And that means they got to be better athletes than I was. And and that's not a hard thing to do, thankfully. But when these guys are out there, even if they aren't necessarily getting the block, they're influencing the defense because when you are a 185-pound defensive back and you have a 300-pound sweaty ass hog coming at you and trying to potentially dive at your legs, you don't want any piece of that if you're Illinois. So as soon as we're having the step back screen, what you got to love about here is the influence of that wide receiver that knows he has to block. He is the key to this because if he doesn't influence that corner or take a couple steps back up and then come at him aggressively and not whiff, man, it potentially could blow up the whole play. But as soon as we get the ball thrown out there, the whole cavalry is coming. You've got everything from the right guard on over coming out there, and they don't even have to necessarily make contact. We can still get the first down. Just those guys going out there and influencing the defense to take a couple steps backwards and think about if they really want to make that tackle or not.
The very next thing we have here is another one I think you're really going to like, Nick. Mostly because if I'm counting correctly, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is that 8 down linemen I'm looking at right here? That looks like 8 down linemen as well as a fullback. That's some real eye formation.
Yeah, dude, I love when you're able to go out there and especially when what is the perception of Oregon? Everybody's always thought, Oregon's going to line up one back, one tight end, 3 wide receivers and try and spread you out. Well, we're actually going to load up the box because we've got all the linemen to do it. And now, you know what? We're still going to have enough confidence in our execution to come out and pass. Because, of course, even with our best tight end down, we still have a bunch of monsters that we can get the football to. And I mean, like, especially when we see Patrick Herbert out here, anytime you can get him the football, man, people are getting excited. Love to see that guy get the football in his hands because he's out there blocking so much.
Well, and I think what I love about this one, you see the decision making from Dylan Gabriel. He wants that deeper shot. You can tell he does at first, but
Gives it a look.
He settles down, finds Herbert right there wide open. A phenomenal play. Here we got moving ahead a little bit. This is, I think, the run that everybody saw. It was seen around the college football world. 3rd and 5. Oregon, what do? They're going to hand it off right up the middle, and Noah Whittington is going to have maybe, just for the forcefulness alone, the run of the year.
Yeah, a career highlight right there for sure. That there is one of those ones that will be on the senior highlight tape for sure at the end of the season. Man, And another thing, I already mentioned it earlier, what really makes this play is what we used to call the cap block by the tight end coming back on the backside, capping off the backside. We generally, we can have a zone read on that defensive end, but instead, let's have one of our best athletes come and take a great angle of pursuit, blow him out of the way, so our back has a one-on-one opportunity right there with the safety. And you know what? When you're an Oregon back and you get a one-on-one opportunity with safety at the 1 yard line in Autzen Stadium, I feel bad for that safety because he's about to be on a poster.
And he absolutely was flattened out, steamrolled, however you want to put it. My goodness. Number 10, he probably had family watching that game. And my goodness, that might not be a very fair thing to make them sit through. Noah Whittington dropping the boom right there in a way that probably only Big Justice and AJ could drop a boom quite like that. The last play we have, of course, this is moving on to the third quarter. It's another 1st and 10 situation. And what I really love about this one, you see Lowe coming in motion, and then immediately it's another screen opportunity, another one that's picked up by Patrick Herbert right there. What are you seeing from this offensive line getting to the second level on this play?
Hey, man, it just shows you everything. When you got the dogs out there and they're excited and you're going to be making plays, those screens are so much fun, especially when you're getting a guy like Herbert the ball, man. He's been doing his work. He's been making it a tough day for the defense. They're more worried about him coming and putting that next big block on him. Next thing you know, he's stumbling down the field with that big, long Justin Herbert stride, man. It looks so familiar, but instead from the tight end position, and you've got all these offensive linemen just out here. Great just positioning. And the part is the sell. They've been doing such a great job in pass protection that sometimes these defensive linemen already know that they're not going to get to the quarterback. So sometimes you got to carefully give them that kind of little shove or that encouragement to let them think like, oh yeah, you got me. Nope, turn around and we're going for a screen, baby. And we're already 10, 15 yards down the field when you're not even near the quarterback. I love a good screenplay. And hey, especially when you're up big and you run it on a 1st and 10 and can execute, that's great football right there. Because usually it's not what you expect. Usually predictable football. All right, you run a screen in kind of a 3rd down territory situation, 3rd and long, just trying to pick up some yards. Nah, run it on 1st down, baby. Get those offensive linemen out there and running. I love it.
Well, folks, that just about does it there for our coverage of that Oregon-Illinois matchup. The Ducks, they moved to 6-0 wearing the Bumblebee uniforms. Just remember that next time you know this team needs a win. Nick, this is going to be a little bit different of an episode than usual because what's going to happen is we're going to put out 2 versions of this. One version is going to drop very, very early in the morning when people are going to be traveling, but the second version that'll be coming out a little later in the day is going to have an interview with one of my all-time favorite Ducks. I'll just introduce him right now. Folks, Jeremiah Johnson.
Joining us now, one of my favorite guests of all time, one of my favorite running backs in Oregon history. We got Jeremiah Johnson, a key part of the role that the Oregon had the last time we went all the way to the big house in Michigan. He was the man bringing down the big sledgehammer right there on the old Block M right there in Michigan. JJ, how are you doing? And first and foremost, what is it like looking back at those memories from the 2007 season and seeing the Ducks go on the road and have that highlight reel, especially with the Statue of Liberty plays where you're out there throwing your body at the knees of a linebacker?
Tell me about it, man. I'm so happy to be here, first and foremost. So good to be here one more time, man. You guys are awesome. And I love your show. And, first of all, when you're a Duck coming from the Pac-10 at that time, you're not really focused on what's going on, as we say, across the pond. We don't know what's going on that side of the map. But, just to actually feel how big that game was, for me personally, I didn't think the game was that big. I'm like, hey, we're going to go play football at this place that they call Big House that holds, 110,000 fans. That's going to be going crazy. I heard about it. I played NCAA football and seen it on video game scale. But, to really be there and kind of, take it all in at that moment before I'm actually in the stadium was kind of in the back of my mind. But when I got there, I was blown away. I'm like, where that I get myself into. This is crazy. It's a lot of people. And, just from that standpoint, as a player, it really started to set in like, oh, this is big time football. This is where a lot of these people wish to be, and I am here and I embraced it, man. And going into it, we had a great game plan. We're super confident about that. But, man, when that kickoff came, man, it was so loud. I'm like, I've heard it like this before, but we only had it, 56, 58, maybe 59? But to see that many people that were just going crazy, it's kind of frightened me a little bit. But, we put it through.
Well, and Jeremiah, that was a ruckus crowd that you guys were able to silence pretty quickly. You guys came out, definitely hit them hard, hit them fast. What do you kind of remember from game prep that week, everything that went into what became the memorable game that it was?
What I can remember, I just think we were so locked in and focused on, on ourselves. And like I said earlier, I know for me personally, I really didn't know the grand scale of the game until, we were off the plane and we were getting dressed and going out there. But for us, it was just Chip Kelly, Coach Bellotti, Coach Campbell. We all locked in. We're like, hey, this is all about us. We're not worried about who they lost to the previous game. We don't care about none of that. We're talking about us. We know where we want to go in the season, and so we're just going to do us. And we had a great game plan going in. Our defense is hot all week. And, when you look at it from a player standpoint, you're just going to play football. We're going to play a kid's game with a high scale of difficulty. And now we just talk about how can we be better just by a little bit, right? Because, this is a prominent program. This is a program that has housed guys like Charles Woodson, Desmond Howard, Heisman winning trophies, winners. And so it's big when you start thinking about the history and the tradition of this of this program. And to be honest with you, we went out there, silenced that 100,000 plus in literally 5 series. And so it was real cool.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned the history there. I love now that Oregon history now always has to mention that 2007 team and what the potential could have been with you, yourself, Jonathan Stewart, Dennis Dixon there in the backfield, Jason Williams out there. Man, looking back now at how unique it was to be as highly ranked as the Ducks were at that time, and now seeing the team get this national credibility of #1 ranking, as players, we don't care about it. Right. But as a former player, what's it like seeing the Ducks really embracing that next level, that big stage on a national level?
Right. I think it's humongous, man, because at the end of the day, when the years I put in, the years you put in, is for this moment here. You know what I'm saying? We bled, we cried, we hung our heads on the same field, the same gridiron. We had our ups, we had our downs, and it's not for naught, right? It's for something. All right, we built the blocks for these young men now to just exercise greatness. And for me as an alum, that's what it's all about, man. Like for the 4 years that I put in. Are these kids remembering that, or is it being shown? Is it saying like, hey, our guys came down here into the big house before and done it, and so it can be done again? And now the only difference is we may have a little better players. We now it's that one on the side of that logo. You know what I'm saying? Now you're #1, and that's big, and hopefully these guys have the mindset of, we're going out here to handle business. And I know that they will. Those guys have, if you look back at the last 5 games, these guys have scored over 30 points easily. And let's talk about the biggest game of the year, Ohio State. We hung 35 on those guys, and it was nothing that we worked for it, of course. But the plays I was ran, the guys the guys that we were putting the ball in their hands, they were just doing work against a very great team. You know what I'm saying? That game could have went any way because of a 12-man penalty, right? So that game could have went either way. And so this is grand. This is big. I'm rooting for our boys. I think they're going to go down to Ann Arbor and handle business and try and silence that crowd again.
Well, admittedly, Jeremiah, I'm recording this right now from an airport on my way to Ann Arbor right now to be able to hopefully be a little bit of the loud part of those Duck fans that are able to hopefully celebrate on Saturday. But a question I had for you, kind of just as a player, what does it mean to be able to see the green and yellow away at these road games? Obviously, such a famous picture is you celebrating with the Oregon fans after that game, standing up on the bricks, being there with everybody. What does it mean from a player's perspective to be able to look up in the crowd and see that kind of traveling support?
And when you have fans that travels, man, it's almost like an inside home game for you because you know, I've been in games and where even, you know, in Canada with my CFL professional career where everyone travels and it feels like a game that's what do you call it? It's a game where like a neutral site game, right? And so like you get love, both teams are here, and you can almost feel that same type of situation when Ohio State came into town. You know, you look into that stands, what pissed me off a little bit. I'm like, dang, this is a lot of red here, right? and I'm pretty sure it made Ohio State feel comfortable to come down here and play, right? And so when you go out and you see that green, that yellow, that mirror tint or that flashing white go out there and you look up in the stands and you see your people. It gives you more grit. It gives you more fight. It gives you a cause to want to go out there and do business.
Love it. And with the debut of our Warp Speed white uniforms, I had to bust out the old high school recruit hat back, you know, from back in the day, picking this up off the table, even though I'd already signed committed Duck. But man, I want to know first and foremost what you think about the new uniforms, this the Generation O era of uniforms and all the little throwbacks, the callbacks, the steel grading to give a remix back to your era.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's amazing. I mean, those uniforms, I mean, first of all, Oregon in our uniform capabilities has never left me like, oh, man, this is not good. It's always exciting. It's always new. It's always crazy. And like with the new technologies and that they're coming up with the sweat wicking material, with the it's really hot out here, but you got something that's going to keep you cool. Like that stuff is amazing. Like it's crazy. If a kid don't want to come to Oregon just for that, I mean, something is wrong. You know what I'm saying? And to see what they're coming out with this year, I've just been in awe. Like, wow, every single week is something that's crazy. And the shoe game that comes along with that is just, it's awesome. It's awesome. So I'm super proud of those guys.
Imagine the NIL game, JJ. If we would have been selling 24 jerseys in 2008, you would have been set, man. You'd be sitting on a throne right now talking to us.
Oh my God. I say it all the time, but we, like I said earlier, we put that time in for these guys to embrace those type of those good qualities and playing college football. And so, although I would love to bank out on that, that's for them. That's their era. That's their generation. That's for them. But it's I'll be nice right now. I'll probably have a Lambo in the driveway chilling right now. No, I'm just playing.
One more thing I wanted to be able to touch on before moving off of at least that '07 version of the Oregon-Michigan game. You had one of the most explosive plays of that game, actually, a 39-yard run. From the looks of it, supposed to go up the middle, you bounce it to the outside, threw a couple of stiff arms, was able to get a lot of headway there. If you can kind of break that down from us, at least from what you remember, I would love to be able to hear a little bit of what's going through your mind the moment you realize you've got to change path and then what you see in front of you.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me start it, give you a preface of where my head was. If you can remember that game, 2 series prior to that, I fumbled the ball like at the 5-yard line. And I was pissed. Like, that was my chance to get into the end zone. And so after that, my mindset was, I got to make something happen. I gotta make, I don't care what the score is. I don't care if we beat them 100-0. For me and my confidence, I have to make something happen. And we called zone left. The big guys kind of converged in the middle to bring a 2A gap blitz with the linebackers and kind of bounce it out. And I seen number 27, I forget his name. And he's a pretty solid kid, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, I ain't got nowhere to go. And then I kind of like stepped into him. He slapped my hand down the first time. Then I replaced it right on the side of his face. And I said, oh, he's not moving it. And so I just put everything into it, man. I laid him down on his face and I just kept pushing. With him falling, another guy fell over him and I kept pushing. You know, and I look back at that highlight because I tell my son and I tell my guys that I coach down in Willamette High School, I say, if you got the speed, use the speed. You can only rely on the still form when you know it's going to, you know, kind of part you going forward. Looking back at it, I should have just used that speed to go. But I felt like I can get another stiffy in, but I was moving too fast and I shot it again and he grabbed me back and then 17 other ones started grabbing up on me. But make a long story short, that run was a confidence run for me. I was trying to make something happen for myself without going outside of myself. And it just laid up perfect for me to just kind of show what the Oregon fans know about me the most is that massive and that vicious stiff form, where I was able to show it and show it in a place like that at a time like that where all the eyes are there. It was massive for me, my confidence, and massive for me, my career.
All right, Coach. Now, we can't quite give all these talented backs in the Oregon backfield the exact same stiffy you had back in the day. But if you're in that coaching room right now, you're talking to Jordan James, Noah Whittington, all the guys in there, what are you saying to get them prepped for this away game in Michigan?
Honestly, man, I'm telling these guys to, first of all, let's play within ourselves. Let's do what we do. Let's not go over the call of what, you know, we've been doing. And second of all, let's go out there and make plays. That's what this game is all about. You know, read the lineman, read whatever play you go in zone. You got the two going up to the D tackle, going up to the linebacker. Read that out, make a play, make one cut. Let's go. And most importantly, protect the football. It's so funny us talking about these running backs. We got some. Jordan James is a monster. You know, he's a monster. He's sitting up right now at like 800 yards with 136 carries, 8 touchdowns, right? And what I love the yards, but what's so crazy to me and what I look at as a running back coach and a running back myself is yards per carry. This kid is 6.8, 6.9 yards per carry. And if you can give me that on first down, we can make something happen on second and short. You know what I mean? So, but the thing is, you know, we talk a lot about Jordan James, but this one kid, Noah Whittington, I call him my X factor because he's a guy that's a great catcher at the backfield. He's a great returner. We've seen him take one back in Oregon State, I believe. You know, he has that lightning strike ability to just go off of any carry possible, right? And when you have a Jordan and a Noah in your backfield and you can get both of these guys going early, dude, you know, that's almost resembling of, you know, you go back to Maurice Morris and Ontario Smith. You go back to myself and Jay Stu. You go back to myself and LeGarrette Blunt. You can go even be after that. You go KB and LaMichael James. Like, you get both guys going. You get both of your dogs just hungry. Oh, you ain't got to worry about much. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to worry about much. And I really hope that they start really putting Noah in a position to prosper because he's a kid who's a hardworking kid. And every time I talk to him, he's so respectable. Both of the young guys are so respectable. And I always want to see those guys do their thing and do great things. And let me tell you, if we can get Jordan going with 16, get 100, we can get Noah with about 10, 11, get him up in the 80, 90 ranges and get both of them in the end zone. I think this game is going to be a close shut deal. Because once those guys start coming down on the run game, Dylan most definitely is going to expose that secondary, which I think is not a really good secondary. When you look at Michigan's defense, you see that they're carrying this team. Point blank. right? You have a quarterback in Michigan who's, he's throwing 576 yards, 3 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Like, you play for Michigan. Like, you're supposed to be doing more than that. And you look at his overall QBR at 52.7, like, the thing is like when you look on the other side of the field, you got a Dylan Gabriel. This guy is super efficient. This guy is 2,371 yards, if I'm not mistaken, 18 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. His QBR, he's almost in the 80 ranges. You know what I'm saying? Like, this kid is special. And so if you can't stop the run, you damn sure not going to stop the pass. And if you can try to stop the pass, we got two wolves that can go out there and do some work. And let's not. I know I'm a rambler, guy, so I like talking football. This is what I do. This is my passion. I love talking football. Let's talk about the defense for a little bit. Our defense are 11 hungry savages. We already got one for sure, Savage and Kobe Savage, right? But you look at guys like Basa Batcher. Jabbar, which is the lockdown corner. You got guys like Jordan Burch. Hopefully he gets back in the lineup this week. You got Harmon and Jabbar and Jamari Caldwell in the middle, just making plays. You know what I'm saying? I think if we can control the line of scrimmage there, that there's no way that we're losing this game.
Well, Jeremiah, I love being able to hear your perspective, especially now that you are coaching, as you mentioned. I'd love to ask, what brought you to Willamette? What brought you to the position you're in now as a coach of high school players? And what have you kind of learned about the game from seeing it from that perspective?
I think first and foremost, I made Oregon my home. And, I'm quite frankly, I'm just tired of seeing colleges looking over these Oregon athletes, because I just think whether they're 3 to 4 to 5 stars, they can make some rosters and do some big things. So, I dedicated my services in the community to make sure we can adequately give these young kids down here in Oregon, really in the Eugene, Springfield area, the opportunity to be great. I just think a lot of that stuff is not being taught here because, hey, D2 is fine for you because you're out of Oregon. And unless you're going to a big school like Lake Oswego, Sheldon, you're not going to get a whole lot of eyes. So, I want to service those kids. I want to make sure they get a fair shot out there in this college game, especially with the NIL, especially with the transfer game. Give these kids something to really, really push for, because I've seen a lot of great players that came out of high school with nothing, no letters, nothing, and they end up going somewhere and kind of get lost in the shuffle. And so getting this coaching job here with Willamette, I was approached by Josh Line, which is a ex-Duck. He played football fullback here in like the early 90s, mid-early 90s. And so he's been coaching in the high school spot for about at least 20-something years. And he brought me on along with Dietrich Moore, Mark Schmidt, Marshawn Tucker. We got great coaches like Bill Hughes, Miles Haley, and we all have a great understanding of the game of football and have the same means to get these kids to a better college situation that's been out here in Oregon. So with that being said, man, it was a easy decision for me to make. Yeah, of course, it takes a lot of time. Yes, of course, it takes a lot of dealing with a lot of young emotions, a lot of young impulsive natures, but it's something that I'm learning to love. It's something that I really want to take in and do it for a while, to where I'm able to give these kids something to look up to and give these kids a good I don't want to say father figure, but a male role model in their lives, so they can be something, whether it's football or not. We still want to make sure these kids love life in general. Right? We want to make sure these kids are great people in this community and great people, just to be great civil people. In all. And so it is a great situation. Willamette right now, we're killing it right now. We're 7-1. We got Thurston here in about 7 to 8 hours, and so we're doing great. We got some great kids. We got an even better coaching staff, and hopefully, if we do talk again, I'll probably talking about playoffs and seeing where we go with that.
Hell yeah, I love it, man. And especially, I love hearing that because I know I always looked up to you when I came in as a freshman. You're a leader on that team and always one of the not. I always tell a lot of people, some of your favorite athletes, they aren't always the best people, but most Oregon Ducks, man, we're lucky to say it's been a lot of good people that come through that program. Now, on top of that, I'm glad you mentioned Oregon fullbacks. That's almost something that has been like a curse word in the past 20 years. This season in the Big Ten, you've not only got to see a fullback, you've gotten to see Amari Washington out there leading the way in the red zone. If you were there in that backfield with those guys in front of you, how safe would you be feeling there punching it down in the red zone?
I will be very safe. I would feel like I got a life vest on, right? Because coming out of high school, I came from a fullback type game, and they took that away from me. I felt like almost naked. Like, wait, I don't have another person in front of me to block this guy, right? But seeing that Big Ten, that it almost transformed us to make sure we got somebody on the roster that's a dog, and I want to go out there and just eat raw meat for the cause. I'm gonna be honest with you. Fullback is not a flattering position. You gotta want it and you gotta love it. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to my linemen, when it comes to my fullbacks, bro, I'm like, I want to give you a piece of me because I love you, because I know what you do. You do things that the regular person wouldn't do. And thank you for going down that dark alley first. so I can see the light. You know what I'm saying? So seeing that in these offenses, especially in the Big Ten, it's so good to see. So good to see.
Well, Jeremiah, we don't want to take up too much more of your time. We know you got a huge game against Thurston tonight that I'm assuming, like most Thurston games, will be available to our Eugene audience on 88.1 FM. What I will say, though, and I do have a question about this. You mentioned it earlier, and it's that CFL career. Tomorrow, the BC Lions, a team you played with for a long time, they've got a game at Saskatchewan in the Western semifinals. They're led by Vernon Adams, another former Duck. Is that something you're going to keep an eye on tomorrow after that Oregon game wraps up?
Absolutely. I'm always looking into my CFL guys. And, at this point, it's more the players than the team. I played for BC for a long, 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 long time. And I love the organization, love the fans. But I played with Vernon down in Montreal. Great guy, man. Great quarterback. He's a pure leader. And I have no doubt in my mind that going into SAS, which is going to be super hard, because if you ain't never been to SAS, it's literally a college town for professionals. You okay? And so, when we're like, let me set this up for you real quick. You go there, just like in high school ball in a small town, you got everything closing down for the game. We're talking about a mall, which is, I'll call it a four-corner mall. There's really only four corners in the mall. That whole thing is shut down because everyone worked there. Everyone is at the game. And they get so loud. And that stadium is super beautiful. They get so loud, nothing but flashes of greens all over it. So it's a hard place to play. But I have no doubt in my mind that Vernon and his guys can go ahead, get out there and get it done and get to that Grey Cup.
Love it. Love the shout out to the CFL. As a former Eskimo or elk for about a week and a half, got to get down there and hey, the one game preseason game I got to play in was in that beautiful dome down there in Vancouver. So it can't always be as nice as BC, my friend. But all right, to wrap this up, we got the most important question. All our Oregon fans out there are going to want to know from the man himself, what is your prediction, Jeremiah, for Oregon, Michigan this weekend?
I got us. I got us winning this game by 10 plus. I think it's going to be a shut deal by third quarter. I think obviously I think Michigan gonna start off trying to be heavy on that run game. They got a Khalil Mullings that's doing really good right now. We as a defense we can't sleep on Donovan Edwards. I know he's been a little dormant for the last 5 to 6 games, but hey, this is big. Number one's coming into town. They're already under 2 touchdown deficit, and in the betting scene. And so then they're gonna come out and play. But I just think that we have too many weapons, too many dogs. And we're going to go out there and finish and handle business.
All right.
At least
Love
about
it.
10 plus.
Love it. 10 plus win. Well, thanks for breaking it all down with us, Jeremiah. Hope to have you on again here very, very soon. And as always, once a duck, always a duck. Go Ducks,
Always,
baby.
man. I love y'all. Y'all have a good one, man. Thanks for having me on. God bless y'all.
Thank you. Take it easy, man. We want to welcome back everybody that was with us for our interview with Jeremiah Johnson in our time machine and welcome you back to the present Once a Duck episode you're currently watching right now. Sam, welcome back. How was time travel for you? No motion sickness?
I mean, the only way I think I can describe this, and I'm not the first one to do it, but that was some Terminator timeline stuff right there. That was really moving along, jumping between the lines of travel. But glad to be back here. Glad to still be at home for now. We'll see how things are going by the time that this thing gets released for real. But, Nick, it's time to talk about it. This is a matchup that I think everybody's had circled on their calendar since the beginning of the season. The Oregon Ducks, the Michigan Wolverines. This is going to be an exciting one. What's sticking out to you?
Well, first and foremost, again, is talking about it with Jeremiah Johnson. We have not seen Oregon go to the Big House in almost 20 years. And it's one of those things that right now you see everyone else in the Big Ten is having some issues when they have to go on these long away games. And you know what? Oregon only had one so far against Purdue, and it worked out pretty well. The thing is the atmosphere of the Big House is going to be a lot different than what we witnessed in Purdue. And that for them right now, Michigan, this is a Michigan team that is your former national champions that are kind of reeling right now. Harbaugh coaching, moving on to the NFL, dealing with the repercussions of what everybody thought was a big scandal and the Connor Stallions, and then overall the attrition. But this is still a very, very talented team, especially along the defensive front. So when I first think about this, the two things that give me the most concern in this football game are we able to go on the road, avoid distractions, and bring our best football with us like we have in the past, and this defensive front in general, because as we've seen, this Oregon offensive line the past couple weeks have really, really gelled together. But if you think back to those first couple weeks, if you have those kind of struggles in a place like the Big House with a team like Michigan and the kind of level of talent of players they have, especially along that defensive front, it could be a very, very difficult day.
And I mean, it certainly could be. Michigan, they are a team that they do two things very, very well. They play some great defense and they run the ball. Historically, those have been things that have given Oregon football teams trouble in the past. This year's team's a little bit different than Oregon football teams in the past. That's absolutely true. But when you're dealing with the types of talent they bring to the table, that's going to be a problem. The guys that really stick out to me, they've got a pair of running backs that I think are very, very talented. First and foremost, the guy that I want to talk about, Khalil Mullings. He is a senior, 6'2", 233. That's a big boy playing running back right there. 649 yards in the season, 7 touchdowns, averaging 5.6 yards per carry. And then, of course, we all know about Donovan Edwards, senior, 6'1", 212. You saw him on the expanded edition College Football 25 cover. He's the type of guy who he will be in Madden next year. Let's put it that way. Another very, very talented guy that Michigan should have the services of this coming week. And then defensively, I think we all know what they bring to the table. An NFL defensive line for sure. A couple of linebackers and Houseman and Burham who are very, very, very talented players. And then, of course, you know that they're going to have the DBs at work, specifically Quentin Johnson, maybe the best defensive back in the entire country. Michigan, they do present some real challenges, and I would love to hear from you a little bit, Nick. What is Oregon going to have to do in this game to limit what those challenges can do problem-wise to this Oregon team?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, this is a Michigan offense that has been struggling to find an identity this season. Last year with Harbaugh, it was very obvious it's a Harbaugh offense. We're going to smash you in the mouth, and then when you're expecting us to smash you in the mouth, we're going to bring out a couple bigger guys, and we're going to smash you in the mouth again. We're going to have a quarterback that can at least operate and manage our offense enough to smash you in the mouth multiple more times. Now, this offense would like to be that, but the biggest factor is right now this is not the same kind of offensive front that we've seen from these past Michigan teams where these guys year in, year out come into the season and usually leave the season with that Joe Moore award. And that is something that back in my day as an Oregon offensive lineman, we strive for. We really wanted every single person, every single play out there to be striving for that because we really thought we were the best offensive front in the country. And that's what you strive for. And right now, that's not the same thing that this Michigan front can say. And more importantly, as an Oregon defensive line that has been having a lot of success. We have had Jordan Birch back in practice this week. I mean, there's the potential right there for a huge mismatch I think you need to take advantage of. And then again, same thing on the other side. But blame me for being an offensive lineman for looking at it, the battle starting up front. But if you're going on the road, the biggest thing before even taking care of these great defensive linemen, you have to all be in rhythm and on the same snap count. So it's going to be important. I know the big house is not necessarily as loud as a lot of stadiums, but it's big. And the factor of those Michigan fans, this is going to be a number one team coming into their house, and they're going to be loud. So you have to, whether it's going to be a silent count or, if you guys are going to have to be there trusting the quarterback or perhaps a center call, there's lots of ways to do it. But the biggest thing is make sure no pre-penalty, pre-play penalties or turnovers, especially as a result of communication there on the road. So I think those are the biggest things that we need to take care of in order to secure this game and continue on the same path and trajectory that this football team's been going on.
Well, and I think, Nick, one thing that's very important, you mentioned that offensive line, which is significantly different from how it was last year. I think another thing you have to just mention is quarterback play is significantly different.
Yeah.
J.J. McCarthy, he was a first-round pick. He went to Minnesota, unfortunately had the injury, but he's a guy that you're probably going to see playing on Sunday for a very long time. Michigan, they've not had the same type of quarterback play. Obviously, you know that they've got two players that are going to be primarily handling things for them offensively from the quarterback position. You're going to have Davis Warren, who is their usual starter, 6'2", 195-pounder, out of Los Angeles, California. It's a guy that so far in the season, 567 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, but 6 interceptions. A guy that you can definitely take advantage of when he starts to make mistakes. And then the other quarterback, Alex Orji, a junior, 6'3", 235, and he's their runner. Like, we all know what he's going to do when he's out there. He's their runner. He's the one they are bringing in for those exact same type of packages. Another guy who had been actually playing some quarterback for them this year, Jack Tuttle, just this week actually announced he's stepping away from the game. Unfortunately, he picked up a 5th career concussion recently, decided it was better for himself, better for his long-term health to step away from the game. Regardless of who you are, what team you play for, you never want to see a guy having health issues, but I can always respect somebody who's willing to take that long view of things, understand when their time has come, and nothing but the best for him moving forward,
Seriously.
getting his degree at Michigan and onward with life. But from an Oregon football perspective, you got to know the 2 quarterbacks that they're going to be bringing out there, and those are Warren, the number 16, primarily in there for their passing game, and Orji, number 10, who will be in there for the running game. Those 2 guys, each talented in their own right, but they're not bringing the same things to the table that a guy like McCarthy was over the last few years. Yep. You saw how much he impacted the game. And I think the place that shows up best here is when you look at their receiving numbers. First and foremost, they have 3 players that have over double-digit receptions this season. We're 8 games into the year already. There are only 3 players on this team with more than 9 grabs. Donovan Edwards has 11. You've got Morgan with 20. And then I think their best receiving option, honestly, it's going to be the tight end Loveland. He's been a guy who can really go get it done for them. Colston Loveland, number 18, a junior. He's got 42 receptions, 411 yards, and 4 touchdowns. But beyond that, the passing game is it's limited. Let's just call it what it is. It's limited, and I think that Oregon, if they're able to stack up the box, if they're able to do a good job being disciplined, it's the kind of game that they could probably have some success in, especially if they're able to keep an eye on what's happening between the tackles, be able to stop Mullings and Edwards from causing the type of problems they can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it again, like we said, it's going to be a lot, especially because of their disadvantage at the quarterback position. A lot of it is going to be one up front, and the only way Michigan will really feel like it will be able to establish itself is, in the running game, and if they can get those backs going. But again, glad you mentioned the quarterback position, and especially Tuttle. The shout out to him. I feel like he's lucky though to be able to count his number of concussions. So like 5 concussions. I can't count my number of concussions or orgies. So it's
We're aware of both.
well, we don't have a running track on the podcast, but we should keep one for all future upcoming orgies and concussions. But anyways, back to the football game at hand. I think ultimately, even then, just possession of the football is going to be really, really important, making sure we don't turn it over. And something really interesting I noticed from the Illinois game is all our scoring drives were like within about 2 to 4 minutes. These aren't long, withdrawn. And that's what you get in Autzen Stadium. And I think when you go on the road, there's a lot more emphasis on kind of suffocating the football, especially against some of these Big Ten teams that really they do rely on their defensive talent first and foremost, which, coming from the Pac-12, that's almost a foreign concept where all your studs are on offense. So I think out here, the one of the biggest things is, and I'm still not like haven't written down my prediction yet, but I do expect both of these defenses to really set the tone for this game.
Well, and I mean, I think defensively, when you look at Michigan, that's the place where this can for sure become a ball game. If this thing it's a grinded out, hard-nosed ball game, Oregon's tired from the travel. That's where Michigan has their best shot of being able to come and get a victory in this ball game. Yeah. We've mentioned that they have an NFL defensive line. Two guys that really stick out to me. First and foremost, I don't know about you, Nick. I don't know. The numbers thing was a little bit different back when you were playing, but I can't imagine very much being scarier than lining up against a defensive end wearing the number 0. That's got to be terrifying right there. That guy's probably a stud, and in Michigan's case, Josiah Stewart is a stud, the 6'1 senior out of the Bronx, bringing that talent to Ann Arbor, Michigan. So far this season, 6.5 sacks through 8 games, a pair of forced fumbles as well. In total, he's got 27 tackles so far this season. And just take a look at these numbers over the last few years. He had 12.5 sacks as a freshman in 2021, got 3.5 as a sophomore, 5.5 as a junior, and now as a senior season, just bringing it back in full fury, 6.5 already through the 8 games that Michigan has played. He's somebody who can be an absolute problem. Also, Mason Graham, number 55. There's a real D-line number for you. That's one I'd feel a little more familiar with, the junior. He's got 3.5 sacks as well from a down lineman position. Some impressive numbers right there for that defensive front. You mentioned Oregon's offensive line striving for that Joe Moore Award. They're going to have to prove it in this one.
Yeah, and I like you pointing out the number there. I honestly love a good either like kind of semi-symmetrical number, and especially a 0 right there, because it just makes that punch point just that much easier for you right there. Just exactly where the hand placement needs to be. I kind of like 55 blocking against that too, because yeah, it's a lot easier to square up where on the chest plate I'm trying to just stab this hand right into his chest. Again, this is a Big Ten game that we have been prepared for, it feels like, going into this season. It feels like maybe some of our early struggles will help us in these kind of games where we really do need to establish ourselves physically, even with our talent at wide receiver that I feel like most Big Ten teams can't match up with. You still need to go out and establish yourself in the run game physically to be able to keep your quarterback at ease and give Dylan Gabriel the absolute free reins of this offense that we need to be able to be successful and prove to everyone out there that we can beat a former national championship on our way to whatever this season's end may be. But I know the goal, everybody in that locker room right now, and everybody that sees this as the number one team in the nation knows this is a team that has the potential to go all the way. And to do it, you got to go and show the former champ who's boss now.
Nick, I think you're absolutely right there. Just before we give our predictions, because we're almost at that time, what's just one or two real important keys to this game that you need to see from Oregon in order to feel real comfortable about this trip to Ann Arbor?
Yeah, zero turnovers, especially in the red zone. Every time we go to the red zone, we need to come away with points, or at least the opportunity to come away with points. If we miss a kick or something gets blocked, that's fine. But man, some of these opportunities when you were out there in the big house, don't get big headed just because we've been seeing all the highlights of the Statue of Liberty play. Don't get away from what brought you here. Good, tried and true Oregon football always starts up front, establishing the run game, and it was never about the trick plays. Like if you go back to that 2007 season, it wasn't necessarily that every single play was the potential for a trick play. Yeah, we had some good zone reads and read options and a lot of fun but a lot of it was just basic inside zone football, and just being able to have backs like Jeremiah Johnson and Jonathan Stewart back there tearing up defenses as soon as they got a one-on-one matchup in the backfield because our offensive front was taken care of. Hat on a hat, everybody out there, nobody getting penetration. That's going to be the biggest thing to take on the road with us. No negative plays, no penetration, no turnovers, and this Oregon team is going to come away still ranked number one in the country, and a whole lot more respect if you go down and take down Michigan in the big house in a big game.
Well, Nick, we always talk about how, the polls don't matter. The polls don't matter. Guess what? The first one that matters comes out next week. It'll be after this ball game. That's the first college football playoff poll. That's when you're going to get a real feel for how everybody is assessing things. And I'll tell you what, you know who's real high up on that council? He might even be the head of it at this point. That'd be the AD for Michigan. Somebody who's going to be in attendance this weekend, somebody who's going to have a lot of say on how things turn out in this college football playoff poll. There's a game to come out and really impress. This is going to be it. Another quick note before we get to our predictions. The last time Oregon played at Michigan, it was a real coming out party for one person in particular, and I think that's Chip Kelly. It was the first year of Chip Kelly being that offensive coordinator. It was the first time you really got to see Chip dig into that bag a little bit. Will Stein, we'd love to see what you're able to pull out in this one. I'm not saying go do the fake Statue of Liberty. I'm not saying there's a need to get too cute. But what I am saying is that there's an opportunity here for this Oregon coaching staff, as well as these players, to go out and impress once again on the national stage. So, Nick, without any further ado, I've got my prediction written down right here. Go ahead and give us yours. I'll follow it up, and we can get out of here.
Above and beyond my prediction, I have been talking with a lot of people that like, oh, you got to try and run the Statue of Liberty again. Or I think ultimately you run a play that it's been played so much. They had to have run it in tape. Play a play that hasn't been done that you think it's going to be the Statue of Liberty, but then we zip a screen out and get exactly, Patrick Herbert stumbling and bumbling down for a touchdown. I would love something like that. And more importantly, man, it'd be great in a Big Ten game right there at 12:30 kickoff if we got a first half touchdown with a tackle screen to Josh Connerly. I know, man, I may be giving too much away. We've gone for some tackle screens before and they haven't quite hit, but man, one of those would be money. And my man, Josh Connerly Jr., I would love to see it. But ultimately, I'm looking at this game right now, and the way I see it right now, Michigan has to have some kind of bounce back, some kind of identity, or this is going to be a problem for them, especially if Jordan Birch is coming back, especially if Terrence Ferguson comes back this week. So I'm going to give Michigan the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to hope that all our Ducks fans out there thank Michigan for giving the Huskies that loss in the national championship game next year. And I'm going to gift them 21 points in this game. But Oregon in this case is going to have 35, and we're going to give a lot of those points away in the second half after we have a great first half. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that against some of our backups, they'll get the score back up there. But right now, I got to say, go Duckies all the way, 35-21.
Got a 35-21 from Nick Cody right there. You know what? While we're making predictions and wild predictions about certain plays you might see at some point, I'm not saying it happens this week, but before the end of the season, I think we're going to see a Dylan Gabriel touchdown reception. I think we're going to see it before the end of the season. I loved how they used it a couple of years back when they were getting the ball to Bo right there on a catch. I think we could see something similar this season.
At Colorado?
It was at Colorado, which almost makes me think a little bit, hey, maybe that's for the Maryland game or something like that. Maybe you hold on to a play of that caliber. But while we're making calling shots like that, that's one that I could see. I went back and forth on this score a little bit. I really do think that Oregon's defense, more than at any other time in this program's history, is primed to be able to stop what Michigan brings to the table. I really, really trust this defensive front to make this game very difficult for them. And I think Michigan's defense, they'll do a good job limiting Oregon. But I think the Ducks are able to come away, at least sort of comfortably. Final score from this one, Oregon 31, Michigan 16. I think that's what we're going to see out of this ball game. That's what
I want to see the paper. I want to see the paper.
It's right here. We got it right here. I don't know if there it is. I don't know if you can see that on there. It's on the phone screen. We've got a 31-16 ball game. I really do believe that Oregon's going to be able to come out in this one, assert themselves, really load up the box, make things difficult. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a couple of interceptions just because they have everybody up against the line of scrimmage, force Michigan to throw. They might complete a few. That's why I think there's going to be some field goals in this game, because I do think they'll be able to pick up a few chunk plays with how Oregon's going to be defending the run. But I also think there's an opportunity for some interceptions. Look out for Jabbar Muhammad maybe getting his first and what's going to be a revenge game for him against Michigan. Look out for maybe Nico Reed being able to get to one. Obviously, Tysheen played a great game last game and got one. Maybe even a Kobe Savage pick. Who knows? I will say, though, Nick, it's always a pleasure to be able to do this. It's always a pleasure whenever anybody is able to come on and listen. Of course, you can follow us at Once a Duck on all the social media. You can follow him at Nick R. Cody. You can follow me at Samuel101TS. And if you're listening to this early in the morning on Friday, check back in. We are hoping that we're able to bring you a great interview that's going to be sandwiched in the middle of these two segments that you've just been listening to. But Nick, before we get out of here, let them know anything else they need to know.
Hey, man, I'm firing up the time travel machine for this interview, hopefully, and hopefully we get all of our Once a Duck podcast fans to not only like, subscribe, and share, but watch not only one, but two versions of the excellent podcast that we've been bringing you this week. And again, keep us posted, because there's going to be another live stream episode coming up here very, very soon. I'm sure of it. And as always, guys, you can always find us on the socials. Let us know down in the comments who you'd like to see in future episodes and what you have predicted for this game. And as always, we got to end it by saying, once a Duck, always a Duck. Go Ducks, baby. Bring it to Michigan. Bring the hammer down.
Folks, I will see you in Ann Arbor. Have a great weekend. Go Ducks.